Days after the announcement of the Agnipath program, the government finds itself facing the furore of protest sweeteners to the scheme announced in the last couple of days. For those of you who have not tracked it, the Agnipath scheme allows for the induction of youth between the ages of 17 and a half and 21 years into the armed forces for 4 years. At the end of these 4 years, 25% of those recruited can stay on. The others go back to their civilian lives. Sounds like a good deal? Well, not to protesters in Bihar, Haryana, Rajasthan and UP. Protests turned violent today. Buses were burned, trains torched and many passenger trains even had to be cancelled. Some of these protesters are aspirants who applied for positions in the armed forces and could not give their written exams in the last 2 years because of COVID-19. So what exactly are these concerns? For one, those who've missed the 21-year deadline because of COVID want an extension. Others are angry about what happens to the 75% who don't get recruited at the end of 4 years. So what about their employment opportunities? That's why they're demanding a rollback of the Agnipath scheme. The big issue, of course, remains that those who are employed for just 4 years don't get a pension or gratuity benefit. And that is why protesters are also angry. They think that the entire quota of those who are recruited in the armed forces will be cut in by this Agnipath scheme, which allows essentially for 4 years of guaranteed employment. But it's not just angry protesters. Opposition parties are also up in arms. The Congress, the Rashtriya Janata Dal, the Samajwadi Party have all expressed concerns. Now, the concerns range from employment of the 75% of recruits who will have to find other jobs after 4 years. Some leaders say it's a dangerous experiment with how the armed forces function, and this is not something that should be toyed with. A group of youth with no jobs and now trained in combat after 4 years let loose on a civilian population is also part of the concern. Will it lead to law and order issues? But there is a third category of voices that are expressing concerns. And these are of retired veterans of the armed forces. Now, let's look at what some of their concerns are. Some of their concerns are that 4 years is simply not enough for someone who wants to dedicate their life to the forces. There will be a significant time of these 4 years, remember, spent on training, and not enough time will be left for these soldiers to actually serve. There's also the problem they raise of how motivated someone will be if they know that they're just there for some time and not in a lifelong profession in the armed forces. That's a big question. And the concern is that such soldiers may be averse to risk if the need arises. The biggest concern seems to be the focus on reducing the pension bill. And, you know, this is the big question, and this is actually the crux of the story. So, India's defense allocation for 2022-23 is 5.25 lakh salaries to those in the forces and could become unsustainable over time. And that is one of the key reasons for the scheme. The other is that the average age of the armed forces will come down if you put this scheme into practice, from 32 years to 26 years due to this. So a younger force is a fitter force. As a response to all of this critique, a number of measures have now been announced. The 75% Agniveers who don't make it to a full-time job in the forces will get preferences in paramilitary and police forces in some states. 3 to 4 states have announced this since the last couple of days. The Agniveers will also get credits towards a graduate degree at the end of 4 years. That's something the Ministry of Education has announced. And of course, at the end of this time, the Agniveers also walk away with a nice, neat sum of between 11 to 12 lakh rupees tax-free, which gives them an opportunity to start off afresh. But is this really enough? And are these concerns valid? To speak on this, I'm joined today by Major General Dhruv Katoch. And I'm also speaking with retired Director, India Foundation, and Colonel Dinny, retired Defence Analyst. Welcome to both of you, and thank you so much for speaking with us. Major General Dhruv Katoch, let me begin by just getting your view on the protests and all of the questions that are being raised. Do you think they're valid?
The first thing is, as far as the protests are concerned, I want to disassociate the two issues. One is the protest and one is the Agnipath scheme.
Right.
Now, as far as the protests are concerned, I think it is totally unjustified for the people to protest in the manner they are protesting. If they are going to start burning buses and trains, this is not the type of people we want in the army or the armed forces. So I think having said that, we come to the second part of it, that is what exactly has been mentioned in the Agnipath proposal. Now, you have already given out the major parts of what has been there and what are the concerns. There is one more concern I want to highlight. You see, I do not think there will be any operational problem in the first 4 years. But gradually, these problems will start increasing every single year. And when we come to the 15th or 16th year, we are going to have a very skewed ratio of 75% of a population of the infantry battalion or an armored regiment or the artillery regiment, which will consist of people who are less than 4 years service, right? And 25% will be people with service of between 4 and 20 years of service. Now, this is a very skewed ratio, and I think operationally it is going to be disastrous as far as I'm concerned for people operating in the field. This is something which needs much, much greater consideration as to how this scheme is supposed to be implemented. The second concern, which I think is a very genuine concern, is of the 75% of the people who do not make it and are kept on the regular cadre. Now, this 75%, they will be given the financial package, yes, is very attractive. I have got no doubts about it. They will have a sum of about 11 lakhs, which they will get, plus their own savings will amount to another 8 to 9 lakhs. Approximately, we can say they will end up with about 20 lakhs. Now, it is a great opportunity for them to set up something different. If they have the enterprising spirit, I think they should be able to get, to get onto private enterprise. I do not think any of them are going to be taken into other government jobs like the CAPF, etc., because that had been promised earlier also, and these agencies refuse to take them in. So will the central government pressurize them to take them? I really do not know. But at the moment, I don't see it happening. So the larger danger which I see is a small percentage of this group of 75 people who, the 75% who do not make it, if they get into the wrong hands, if they align themselves with terrorist forces, if they align themselves with leftist groups like the Maoists, I think that spells a very great danger for the security forces and for the nation as such. And my last point, which I want to make, which I think needs a great deal of consideration, the whole exercise has been aimed at reducing the revenue expenditure and at bringing down military pensions. I think they have gone about it the wrong way. This is my personal view.
Okay.
The aim should be to look at force effectiveness and not at the pension bill. So if you look at it to say, okay, with a limited budget, how do we reduce maximize force effectiveness? Then we can look at a whole range of other options. As of now, there are more than 2 lakh civilian employees. What are we doing with them? We aren't even touching them. Whereas a large number of them can be disassociated from the defense budget, which gives you much greater opportunities for force enhancement. Also, decision-making. How can we expedite decision-making and make it more responsive? You will save thousands of crores of rupees there also.
So putting it simply is that if you want to cut corners, don't think about pensions, find other ways. Let me bring in Colonel Dinny on his point of view. Now, Major General Katoch has listed his concerns. Where do you stand on this, Colonel Dinny?
Katoch, he has raised some very important issues. But I would have a slightly different view on each of those issues. The first issue which he said was, he mentioned that after about 16 years, 75% of the troops would be Agniveers. I mean, and I think what he mentioned was of, less than 4 years of service. I think, sir, there is some, what was told and what has been discussed is that there will be a balance of seniority at all levels. It cannot happen that the entire thing will, it'll be only less than 4 years. That we all know that it will not happen like that. Even if you take a small example, the person who joins today after 60 and 25% of those people would be between the service of 60, they would be touching 16 years of service. Similarly, 12 years of service, 8 years of service, and 4 years. So in 16 years, you will have people who would be of 16 years of service, between 8 to 12, and between 4 to 8 and 1 to 4. So I think that planning, I'm sure the professionals in the Indian Armed Forces would be taking care of. I don't think that is, that will be. Second thing which Sir mentioned was about the large number of people come out, and many of them may not be absorbed into other organizations, and they are likely to go into wrong hands. I think that although the concerns are general, but I don't think that happening. The reason is that 4 years in the army is good enough for a person to be channelized into the right direction. Now, and I'm talking of people who are from the village or semi-urban kind of those kind of people. Now, here is a person who at the age of between 21 to 25 comes out with about 11.71 lakhs lump sum tax-free, and also he would have made about 30 to 40,000 he would have given per month for the last 4 years. So he's financially well off when compared to another youth. And we know that even at the age of 30, there are many people who do not have employment in our own country. So those are not people that everybody goes and joins the insurgents or such like things. So there are people who join, and they join with a cause or whatever may be the reason. But these set of people, I think when you compare them with an average other youth, they are much better off after 4 years. So that I think is my answer for that. As far as pension bill is concerned, I agree with General Katoch that there are ways and means of reducing it. But I don't think this entire exercise was done with the primary focus of reducing pension bill. But
it is one, Colonel Dinny, it is one of the important reasons.
One of the important.
There is no doubt it is, because otherwise what you've talked about is what happens to the youth, the 75%, the 25%. What's in it for the armed forces? I think today, when we explain this, we need to understand this as well, because if it's a 4-year tenure, you're going to spend at least a year and a half getting them ready. And then there simply isn't enough time for them to be useful or purposeful to the armed forces. Or is there enough time? What's in it for the armed forces?
I'll tell you. See, when we look at these Agniveers, we should understand that we are looking at young soldiers. I'm sure General Katoch also would agree with me that there are, even for the officers and even for the men, there are 3 different categories. One are the young soldiers, one is a middle level, and then you have the, senior most JCOs and such like thing. What with these Agniveers are the young soldiers, why as they are known as young soldiers. The young soldiers are given the basic training. They are not given specialized training. They're given the basic training, and the tasks are also of basic nature. What is a general duty? Those duty which an ordinary, or I will not call ordinary, a standard infantryman can do. So that is the kind of training which they require. Now, and after those, if these people, after the 25% who come up, and these will be the best of the best, when these come up, they can then subsequently be given the specialized training, and then they go up, whichever trade or whatever specialization they want to do. So when we speak of Agniveers, we must be very clear that these are young soldiers. These are the basic unit in Sipahis, so Jawans in an infantry battalion, and they are only tasked for that. You can't expect them to be a section commander or a platoon commander. They will not be that. Those are the people who will subsequently.
So basically, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that they have relatively less time to serve. Is that the point you're making?
Absolutely. See, okay. when they come into a battalion, we give them the initial training, and then they form part of a collective training. Like when everybody trains, they are part of it. So they imbibe those part also. But we don't expect them to take on responsibilities as what we will, let's say, an NCO or a JCO. They also will come subsequently. So their task also will be limited to that. They will be part of a collective. They will be under supervision, and so I don't see a problem there.
Major General Katoch, you want to come in as a rejoinder to some of those points that Colonel Dinny has made?
No, I think I'm going to give a rejoinder to all of them. You see, it has been very specifically stated that, and even the Vice Chief, I think, made that statement that within 10 to 12 years, 50% of the people will be below 4 years service, right? If you extend this to 18 to 20 years, 75% of this is the mathematics. I mean, I'm not saying it out of my hand. Anybody with the elementary knowledge of mathematics will give you this assessment. So when there is only one recruitment scheme available, that is, you are going to join as Agniveers, period. Right? In the Agnipath scheme, it is only Agniveers, and only 25% will be taken as regulars, 75% will go. So when we extrapolate this for a 20-year service limit, we will find that the people they're filling up the ranks of the retirees.
Yes.
Right. So automatically, the number of people who are getting in as Agniveers will keep increasing, and the number of people who, on the other end will decrease till we get to this 75-25 ratio, right? Any mathematics, you may try to defend it or not defend it, but that is mathematics. You can't change it. Number two.
Before you get to number two, I think we should close one point at a time so that it doesn't get lost. Colonel Dinny, you want to just respond to this because this was an important point.
Yes, I completely agree with what General Katoch is trying to say. But what my only contention or my submission is that people who join today as an Agniveer and who get selected, those 25%, after 16 years, they would be also having 16 years of service, sir. Isn't it, sir? So those
May I explain that?
Please, sir. Please, sir.
You see, the question is, let us take a unit of a strength of 800 people, right? The number of people who are going to retire every year from the regular army is 40. So in the first year, what is happening is 40 regular soldiers have retired, and in their place, 40 Agniveers have come, right? In the second year, another 40 regular soldiers retire because this is the older lot. And in their place, 25, the Agniveers have come. Now, ultimately, you're finding that the strength is remaining the same, but when you extrapolate the same ratio for 20 years, and I can do it mathematically, explaining each year the level,
but
you will find at the end of 20 years...
Major General Katoch, wouldn't the first 40 in this example of yours already have gained that much experience by then?
No, the first 40 would have, but 30 of them you're taking out after 4 years. So only 10 are left, right?
Okay. No.
This is the point.
Okay, so you're not talking about the 25% that make it. You're talking about the entire pool.
I'm talking about the entire pool. So you will find that over a 20-year gap, we are going to have people out of this 800 lot, 200 will be, the 10 people we have taken every year. They will now form the 200 odd people from age service 4 to service 20. And the rest 600 will be from below 4-year service. Okay. Now that is a very dangerous combination, and any mathematics which I can actually prove it to anybody, but it's very difficult to do it on a TV show.
No, we get the point. We get the point. Colonel Dinny, do you get the point? Do you get the point?
Yes, my last point is this, sir, that I'm sure on this point, General Katoch also would agree with me, that in the army, the bottom part of whether it is an officer cadre or the Jawans or the soldiers, they are the biggest. And as you go up, the strength comes down. So like in a battalion, you have one Subedar Major, and the number of Jawans or Sipahis, as they call, they are large. So that will always be there. But I agree with his point that probably this particular when the project is being implemented and till the time it is completely changed, there will be some issues.
I want to come to the point of motivation. I think of all of the reasons that have been given, motivation is an important one. Colonel Dinny, do you see and agree with the concerns over there? If someone is in it for just about 4 years and they don't know if at the end of the 4 years, if this is going to be their lifelong career or not, are they going to have that same passion and motivation that it takes to serve your country in the armed forces? It's, after all, not just another job.
Motivation, ma'am, I will tell you that it is the responsibility of the unit which he or she in the future would join. That responsibility lies with the unit. Let me tell you that if a good soldier comes, if it's a bad CO and a bad unit, and when I say bad, it is with the leadership level. No matter how good you are, no matter how motivated, you will not feel motivated there. If you are under a good commanding officer, good set of officers, good set of JCOs, even if you are weak, you will feel motivated and you will perform well. This is what we have seen. This is what leadership is all about. And that is why when they say that, when a good CO comes, the entire battalion changes.
Okay. So you're saying it's a leadership question. Major General Katoch, I want you to come to your second point.
Okay. This was, I want to sort this out, this motivation angle. There is a bonding which is there between the soldier and the officer. And this bonding takes place not just in 1 or 2 years, it continues for the entire service of this man, right? Now, I think that bonding is going to take a hit. Leadership, of course, is all about the officers. The good leadership they provide will create wonders. but you are really giving, you're imposing great limitations now on the officers. Their skill sets have to go up many fold as to what they were earlier to maintain that same level of motivation. It is not going to be the same, take it from me. People may say so, but we have seen what has happened in Ukraine. Those are the young soldiers. That level of training, that level of unity, that level of, bonding together as a team, as a subunit. Oh no, all that is going to go for a hit. It is not going to work. And we may try to couch it and say, okay, have a good leader, have this and that. Why are you doing all that? You've got a good system working. Okay. It is working well. Why are you so much concerned about the pension bill?
Okay, let me come to that. The pension bill, though, Major General Katoch, is an important problem, isn't it? There needs to be a solution there, because think about it, lifespans are increasing, the pension bill is going higher and higher, and there will be financial constraints. These are all hard but true facts.
Yes, now I agree it's a hard and true fact, but the question is, the nation has to pay for its security. Are you prepared to pay for your security, or are you not? That is the bottom line. Here is a jeweler shop on a busy street. That fellow keeps 10 security guards, and he has a complete electronic system guarding it, which may cost lakhs. So the other person comes and says, no, I don't think this is worth it. He takes it out, and then he suffers a tremendous loss. Are you prepared to compromise with national security on financial grounds? Well, if you say yes, that's okay. There is a cost to maintaining a young army the way we are maintaining it. Yes, I agree. Are you prepared to pay the cost of a defeat in war? Are you prepared to pay the cost of getting back into being ruled by foreign elements the way we have been ruled for the past 1,000 years? If the answer is yes, well, all right. Then why are you worried about pensions? Why have an army at all? Okay. You see, that is the whole point. What are we prepared to pay to protect ourselves?
So Colonel Dinny, on the point of pensions, do you think that this is something that you and Major General Katoch can agree on, that pensions should not be as big a concern? And do you think the scheme needs to continue as it is or needs tweaking?
No, I have no disagreement with whatever General Katoch has said on the pension aspect. I completely agree with them. There is a price for the national security, and it has to be, there is no doubt that there is no compromise on that. However, one issue which I would definitely like to submit here is that a strong nation brings out a strong army. A strong army can only ensure a strong nation. And when I say strong nation, it has to be economically strong, diplomatic, and all the other aspects which is there. So it is not that, army alone is in a standalone mode and the nation is in different. We have to understand that we are a part of the system. The army also is part of the system. The army is also part of the nation, and there is, a finite amount of resources which is available for us, and we have to work within that. And of course, it can be debated whether we are being given enough, whether the defense civilians are, all those things are very valid points and can be done. But this particular thing also we should not miss sight of, that, there are other issues also in our nation which is of equal importance, whether it is poverty.
What is the point, sir? What is the point? Can you please come to the point?
The point is that, although we as a military man would like to have the maximum resources for the defending our country, but the reality is that when we say that we require all this, it is not possible always. So we have to work within that constraints also, that we should accept. An ideal situation is that we ask for whatever we want and then we get it, but that does not happen all the time. That is what my point is.
Okay, so you're saying be pragmatic about the pensions as well. We'll have to wrap it here, but I want to thank both of you, Major General Katoch and Colonel Dinny, for coming in and explaining the different points of view of what has become a very, very contentious announcement by the central government. We'll have to wait and see whether there is now some sort of softening on the Agnipath plan, or will this continue as has been envisaged? Let me move to the other big story of the day, and the big national story of the day, really. The Enforcement Directorate has accepted Rahul Gandhi's request for deferment of his questioning to the 20th of June. This after he wrote to the ED seeking extension till Monday in an alleged money laundering case linked to the National Herald newspaper. Rahul wrote to the agency requesting a few days off owing to his mother and Congress President Sonia Gandhi's ill health. Remember, Sonia Gandhi had tested positive for COVID-19 a few days ago and has developed complications